Hi guys, biracial Tiffany here. I'm trying to make a video to tell you about my experience on Friday night at the Amy Grant concert. I keep crying every time I say Amy Grant. So, this is take two. Seems to be going much better so far. There's some good stuff in the first 20 minutes that I tried to talk about this, so I will, I'm sure, add some clips from that in here. So yeah, I went to the Amy Grant concert on Friday night, and I got this shirt, and I just loved it so much. I just can't even tell you. Very small theater. Of course, in my mind, Amy Grant is huge, and I'm imagining that we're going to some, like, arena or stadium or something, but it was really small. Theater in New Jersey. Anyway, people sat down the whole time. I was, like, straining to hold myself in my seat because I really wanted to get up. I knew the words to every song, and there was none of this, secular Amy Grant. It was all pre-1988, and it really was like the bulk of her songbook that I love so much, because when I was 15, I was so obsessed with Amy Grant. My best friend Laura and I just, like, seriously couldn't get enough. We would, like, watch concert videos, and we knew every word she said. We said, not only the words that she sang. I say made, but, you can't really make anyone do anything, but out of the goodness, kindness of their hearts, Laura's parents drove us when we were sophomores in high school, Tennessee, because we said we, like, had to go to Vanderbilt, because that's where Amy Grant went, so we needed to go look at it. And we also made them drive around Franklin, Tennessee, looking for Amy Grant's farm. And we did find it. Also, we went to Amy Grant's church, where people were speaking in tongues, and this is the only time I've seen a sort of white equivalent to, being filled with the Holy Spirit, which I've discussed in my religion video on the black side. Whatever I was wearing, I thought Amy Grant had it, would wear it, or it was like a version I could put together of something I saw her wear in a video. Anyway, I just sort of forgot. I can't even say I forgot how much Amy Grant meant to me. I don't think I realized it because, at that age, of course, being the oldest I had ever been, you're not doing too much reflecting on, like, what does this mean to me right now in my life in the greater scheme of things? So she sang all of these old contemporary Christian songs. And what really struck me was that when I was 15, things were hard for me because I was one of two black girls in an all-white high school. Things were difficult for me because my parents were kind of having a custody battle over me. And things were difficult for me because I must have been really tired of not feeling like I belonged anywhere. And it must have seemed like that was never going to end. Because, of course, when you're 15, everything is so big and so important, the end of the world. So that was, like, a crucial time for me, and because my parents were having a custody battle over me, I just don't know where else I was getting any sort of guidance. And so, first of all, anyone who disses Amy Grant for having non-Christian, we'll call it secular, hits, I just don't understand, because I guess I never would have heard of Amy Grant if it weren't for those mainstream songs, which somehow led Laura to, I'm gonna have to ask Laura, how, first of all, did you discover all of this awesome Amy Grantness? And what on earth prompted you to share that with me in that way? Or, like, I just remember you sort of seeming to know that I was gonna like this. And I guess why this is so, painful seems like such a silly word, or a strong word for, you talking about my love of Amy Grant. It's been much more obvious for someone to say, oh, I'm really into Mariah Carey these days. You want to come over and watch some Mariah Carey videos? Or Whitney Houston, or, you get what I'm trying to say. So I love Amy Grant, and, I know that Laura must, it wasn't a question of did she accept me. That's why this is so, like, why am I talking about this, I wonder sometimes, because first of all, it's not always, it's just not always about that, but somehow under the surface it is sometimes, so it's worth talking about. But anyway, I know that Laura saw me. I know that Laura looked past this and said, I think you're gonna like this thing. And she was so right, and it was just, like, exactly what I needed. Amy Grant really... I can't even say Amy Grant now without crying. It's crazy. Provided me some sort of, like, direction and, I guess, kind of like a spiritual path, or showed me some kind of a way to have a... I'm sorry, this is, like, so funny to me that this is happening, and I hate crying on YouTube. We forge ahead. Some sort of personal relationship with God that I had no idea how to cultivate. I think she provided a sort of moral compass. I talk on here a lot about how doing this is not in any way trying to distance myself from blackness. And I mean that. But I have to admit that when I was 15, I probably craved a distance from my blackness. And clearly, that doesn't make me feel good to admit. Actually, sort of stumbled upon this realization back in September when I was working on that play, playing a 15-year-old. And in preparation for that, when I would go to the gym, I would listen to Amy Grant. Like, I was trying to sort of, go back to my 15-year-old self. And really, when I think of myself when I was 15, I think of Amy Grant and Laura. So Melody, who is the character in the play who is biracial, is having a hard time, as most 15-year-olds are probably in some way. But it's certainly a part of the story that we tell in Neighbors that it seems to be Melody's father, who is black, who exacerbates this hard time. I just sort of realized that when you're that age and you're black and you're biracial and your black parent is giving you a hard time, for me anyway, kind of seems like, and especially if you're in an all-white environment, as this character is, and as I was, sort of seems like things would be a whole lot easier if that black half was out of the equation. If that black half was out of the equation, no one would perceive me as another. If that black half was out of the equation, I'd be normal, just like everyone else. So I realize now that in making these videos, I have been very truthful and honest about my feelings today, but I skipped over the part where I didn't always feel this way. So I just sort of I realized that. I saw that when I was working on Melody, and I was like, oh, that's where she is. And I only know that because that's where I was once, and that doesn't feel good. It never for me was that I didn't like black people. I never bought into the inferiority, like an inherent inferiority of black people. I can't say that I was unaffected by portrayals of black as criminal, gangster, poor, but I never thought it had to be that way. I never thought that's what being black is, and I'm going to try to be the opposite of that. I'm going to cling to the white half of myself. But I do know that in a selfish teenager-y sense, just very interesting to go through a social setting, feeling like everyone else. And no one's being brave enough to ever broach the subject of your difference. So, I have some friends from high school that are aware that I do this, and I've heard, like, well, was it really that difficult going to Seaholm? That was my high school, even though there weren't a lot of minorities there. I mean, why was that so hard? It was like, no one was calling me a nigger, and no one said, I can't play with you because, as had happened to me in the past. And it's like, well, yeah, those things would have been much more difficult, but without that, you can still feel when people don't see you as an equal, or when you are made to feel like you have to prove your worth, or that, like, in order to be included, you have to work for it, whereas everyone else just belongs. So people are always saying to me, like, white people will never accept you. Well, what does that mean? Because on the one hand, I've always had a few good white friends who totally accept me. Do they accept me as a white person? I don't know. I never said, hey, part of me is you. It's like you're sitting there and feeling all of this otherness, and it's like, man, part of me is you. And nobody's trained to see that, and I never thought it. First of all, that thought, like that literal thought, never crossed my mind because I considered myself black. But I know that subconsciously that was always going on. But I think that's an important admission for me to make, or something to share. It's not easy, because I'm not proud of that. And I think I've always, on whatever level of me, recognize that it's just been like, that is wrong and that is shameful. That feeling at all uncomfortable with my blackness is the shame. It's not being black. That's how it was for me anyway. I'm sick of crying about this, and it really is just something that, I don't know, I guess that was just a really vulnerable time, and Amy Grant was some sort of, like, bridge that got me to the other side of it, and I didn't, I never thought of it that way before, so it's kind of surprising to me.